Hey, these are your good movie buddies, Eric and Steven. And today we're going to talk to you about the highly anticipated movie that just came out this weekend, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, this movie's been getting a lot of mixed reviews online. Some positive, some negative, some in the middle of the road, some. But we felt compelled to chime in and add our 2 cents because our opinions are the only one that really matters. Now, this review is going to contain some spoilers, so if you want to avoid spoilers, don't listen to this review. Go see the movie, and don't watch the second trailer because, in essence, that is the movie. But if you do want some spoilers and you want to hear our thoughts on it and just see is it as bad as people think, then listen to our review and save yourself the $15 price of admission.
Yeah, so, just before we get into the actual spoilery part of the review, I just want to say, I think overall, this movie doesn't deserve to be getting a lot of the negative criticism that we've seen it, that it's been receiving from professional critics and fans alike. I think overall this is a pretty good movie. It just happens to have a lot of flaws that I think kind of come down to the way it was directed and the way, what the director chose to leave in the movie as opposed to cutting out.
A lot of the problems feel like it falls with narrative and having too many characters to juggle.
Yeah, there's just... Overall, I just feel that there's too much going on in this movie. It's, 2 hours and a half, 2 hours, 45 minutes, something like that. And I've heard that there even exists a 3-hour-long R-rated director's cut or something like that. So who knows? Maybe in the director's cut, a lot of these these kind of like superfluous storylines get better fleshed out and have more relevance. But, at least in the movie we saw, we felt that this is kind of a good movie that just has a lot of fat and bloat that's dragging it down from being as good as it could have been.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. The thing is, even before this movie's release, a lot of people, seem really upset over the casting decision to cast Ben Affleck as Batman.
Which I didn't mind.
Which I didn't really mind either. And I've gone on, and I haven't really gone on record because no one really cares. But I've been telling people Ben Affleck is not going to be the reason this movie's bad. Yeah, Daredevil was bad, but he wasn't really the reason that was bad either. Where at the end of the day, if a movie is bad, it's because the script, there's problems with the script or the director is not competent. And to a degree, I feel that that was really the case here because I'm sure that the studio put a lot of pressure to get this Justice League universe moving, and that's kind of what weighted down this movie.
Yeah, it just became one more thing that Zack Snyder had to work into the movie that didn't really feel like it belonged there. So that being said, if you like Man of Steel, if you like comic book movies in general, I would say go check this out because, I think it's an interesting movie and, just because it's kind of fun to just have opinions about things, So go out there, form an opinion about the movie for yourself. If you're not a comic book fan and you really hated Man of Steel, I would probably say this movie won't really change your mind, so maybe you should save your money, see when it, watch the movie when it comes out on torrents.
on the internet
when it gets illegally stolen by evil internet pirates. Yeah, but that being said, check out the movie if you're a fan of this genre. Otherwise, you can probably wait till it comes out on some kind of legal format. So that being said, we're going to start going into the actual plot of the movie and discussing some spoilerific stuff. So if you haven't seen the movie and you plan to eventually see it, this is where you should probably drop out.
Goodbye, friends.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so the first couple shots of the movie are we got the opening credit sequence, which I haven't seen in a while. Movies don't do opening credit sequences as often as they used to.
Yeah, or at least not very stylistically.
Yeah. I was very surprised to see that they put up the Batman v Superman title in the opening credits. I thought, wait, they're not waiting for the end credits to do that like every movie does now?
Yeah, and they didn't even flash on the screen in big and bold. It's just in the corner somewhere.
Ooh, so artsy.
I'm that was cool.
Cool. But on to more interesting things. So the opening sequence kind of shows Bruce Wayne's origin story. You get the usual things of his parents getting killed. He falls down a well. There's a bunch of bats.
And I thought that was great because yes, we all know this story by now. We just had the 3 Nolan movies that basically reintroduced Batman to the general public. So now we kind of know something about him. So Zack Snyder just needed to get through this before we could get on to the rest of the movie.
And in general, like most of the stuff Zack Snyder does, this part I thought was very stylishly shot. Every part of it looks really cool. The whole thing with the gunshot and the pearls falling and things like that. I thought it looked really cool at least. And, it does a nice job of setting us up in the movie.
And I mean, like, I'm a big Batman fan, so, like, as a fanboy, like, I could watch the Waynes getting murdered a bunch of times in a bunch of, like, subtly different ways and still be interested.
It's just so much fun to watch orphans cry.
Again, like, the very subtle nod of, like, the Mask of Zorro playing in the theater complex when the parents are murdered, just like they were in the comics, like, in, I think, Frank Miller's depiction of it. So, great little nod there. Then the movie kind of jumps forward a little bit, but it shows next the scene from Man of Steel when General Zod and Superman are fighting each other in the city of Metropolis and creating a lot of destruction. Yeah. And we see Bruce Wayne arrive to the city of Metropolis, and where was he going?
I guess he was going because he has a building in Metropolis and he was going to save the building?
But that didn't make a lot of sense right off the bat when you think about it. Like, it was cool that he was there.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, look, granted, this is one of the better scenes of the movie because you get to see, because, I mean, a lot of people very casual fans of these movies, were saying things like, oh, why is Batman going to be fighting Superman in this movie? Aren't they both good guys? But this opening scene does a really good job of showing how, from Batman's perspective, or Bruce Wayne's perspective, you see all the destruction that Zod and Superman are causing around this city from the perspective of just a guy driving around. And so it really gives you the sense where you really understand why Bruce Wayne would feel this guy is just too dangerous to be left unchecked.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I thought Batman's motivations were perhaps the strongest of the movie, and I felt that perhaps even Zack Snyder was the one who, looked at the movie more from a Batman interest area than like in being interested in Superman.
Yeah, this feels a bit more like a Batman movie than a Superman movie, but just by a slight margin.
And that's why Batman gets top billing in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay, so then we get, one of Wayne's buildings crashes, there's a little girl crying in the street, as they often do in these movies.
They're always crying in the street, these girls, why can't they cry at home,
Yeah, there's just always something about to fall on them that Bruce Wayne then gets to save her from. Anyway, so yeah, we get some like melodramatic stuff of people being crushed by buildings and be like, oh, why the humanity, stuff like that. It's a little cheesy, but I mean, again, it just gets you more into Bruce Wayne's frame of mind where he sees how much of a destructive impact Superman can have on this universe.
And then I feel the movie begins to get rolling a little bit.
Then we fast forward to 18 months later, which is now the actual present day.
Right. And once the movie gets rolling, we start to, zone in on some of our themes of the movie. And kind of what we mentioned earlier, well, look at Superman, like, he is essentially a god to these people. He's all-powerful.
This isn't even a metaphor. They make this comparison so many times in the movie.
Like, almost beat it into you, but it's understandable because if you're a humanity that looks at a Superman, you're like, well, he caused all this destruction. He's the reason that half of Metropolis was destroyed in that fight.
Although 18 months later, it seems to be looking pretty fine.
That's pretty true. And they even, put up a monument.
Got a lot of stuff done.
So regardless, General Zod was there on Earth, and he was going to destroy things anyway. So had Superman not been there, what would Earth have done? So it's a very interesting dynamic of, now he has to take responsibility for all this destruction, but he was just trying to do the right thing in this scenario, and people got hurt. And now we have to take a look at things from Superman's perspective, because as Clark Kent, he sees footage of the Bat of Gotham, who is taking down criminals, and he's a more violent Batman than we've seen in any other film adaptation. And you could see he's even branding people with
the bat symbol.
With the bat symbol to
leave his
mark on people. And I thought this was a good direction for Superman to have a problem with Batman. It's like you're looking at a vigilante who is trying to do good in Batman, but he's taking things a step too far. So as Superman being the all-good Boy Scout, he would want to say, hey, buddy,
I got this. We don't need to have you doing all this crazy stuff.
Yeah. But I really feel that as the movie progresses, that theme is really dropped, and the theme of Superman being a god and he has to take responsibility is beaten down into your head.
Oh my god, they talk about it so much.
Now let's talk about... Give me something that you liked about this movie, because it's very easy to find a lot of flaws, but I think we should try and stay positive, at least for a little while here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the kind of conflict between Batman and Superman themselves was pretty fairly well done, and the fights towards the end of the movie get pretty intense and epic and very flashy and impressive. Generally my problems have to do with all the other stuff around that main confrontation, because Zack Snyder just throws in so many different plot lines that don't really feel like they were necessary, or feel like they could have been shortened a lot. Yeah, okay, so once we get past the opening sequence, we flash forward to Amy Adams as Lois Lane doing some journalist stuff. And she has this subplot throughout the movie where she's trying to track down the origins of these mercenaries who kind of escalated a conflict that Superman was involved in and resulted in a lot of people getting killed. And, it's just kind of, you eventually find out that Lex was behind everything, but it doesn't even really feel like it was that important to figure that out.
I felt that, we're making a Superman movie, so Lois Lane has to be in the movie, and also Amy Adams is a star, so we can't,
we can't cut her out.
We can't cut her out, so we have to give her something to do. But the problem is all of her scenes seem like they came, in between more interesting things, and they never really... they never really advanced anything for me that couldn't have been advanced in another way.
Yeah, you could even probably just cut her scenes out of the movie and it would barely change anything. Or you could give her half as many scenes and, just write it so that she accomplishes the same amount of things. We don't need to see scene after scene of her taking this bullet around to people, trying to figure out what its origins were, and talking to different people, and then figuring out that, it was Lex all along. Lex is behind everything. Why not?
Okay, so as we're talking about some positives here, well, actually, this wasn't really a positive, but I'll get into a positive here. I really liked Ben Affleck as Batman.
Yeah.
A lot of people being very nervous about that. I'm like, no, he's going to be fine. And he was fine. And actually, he was
a very intimidating physical presence in the movie. It almost reminds me of the Batman, the animated series TV show, where you kind of see Bruce Wayne as this hulking guy in every scene, and that's what Ben Affleck looked like. He looked really intimidating.
And I thought that was great, especially for this Justice League universe that they're trying to build, that he was a little more maybe animated and swinging around using the grappling gun more in fights and gadgets and whatnot.
Yeah, just slightly less grounded than the Christopher Nolan Batman, but still not super over the top.
And he has to be, because if he's going to be fighting monsters and gods,
they have to make him look a bit stronger.
Yeah.
What did you think of his voice in the movie?
Okay, so I think we're of two different opinions on it, but I thought that it was actually good, because if you're thinking logically that the Batman has to have his voice disguised and also sound intimidating to intimidate criminals, it the voice modulator made him sound that intimidating, but he's not sounding like the Christian Bale one that's I'm Batman. That hoarseness in his voice, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're coming from, how he uses his voice modulator to make his voice sound deeper, but I just kept thinking that he sounds exactly like Jigsaw from the Saw franchise. Have I ruined the movie for you now?
I'm trying to make the comparison in my mind.
I like to play a game. Do you bleed?
Okay, it's not far off. I agree with that. I think the idea is good. Maybe some people will take umbrage with the execution of it.
Yeah, I don't mind him using a voice mod. I think the safer thing would have been to just have him use a slightly more raspy voice like Christian Bale does, but maybe not go as over the top as Christian Bale does.
I believe Michael Keaton kind of did something like that. He would talk a little bit more raspy and not in his normal speaking voice when he was Batman.
Yeah, sometimes there's a tendency for these comic book movies for everyone to really want to put their own spin on something, even when it's already been done in the best way possible before. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I said that, because now that brings me to my next point about Lex Luthor.
Oh. As an actor, you make a lot of choices. And Lex made a lot of choices.
Why? Jesse Eisenberg was easily one of the worst things about this movie. And I generally like him as an actor. Even though, you could say he's always just playing himself in movies. Mm-hmm. But here it felt like he wanted to not play himself, and instead he still played himself, but in a way that was so over the top and cartoonish that he just felt like he was constantly bouncing around in the movie like a little kid or something, being really socially awkward, and nothing like, the intimidating, savvy businessman that Lex Luthor is supposed to be.
Yeah, it was certainly a weak point of the movie. Like all the build up to the movie, every time you'd see him, I'm like, well, maybe it'll make more sense in the context of the movie. And it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about how we saw him in the trailers and we thought, man, that looks stupid, but maybe in the full movie you'll grow to like it. But no, he's just annoying all the time.
And
his dialogue is generally pretty well written. I mean, he kind of talks about... You get a bit of a good sense of why he hates Superman, and it's for similar reasons as, Batman's reasons for not liking Superman.
Yeah.
But he just says things in the most annoying way possible.
Yeah.
And I don't know if should we be blaming Jesse Eisenberg for, putting that spin on the character, or should Zack Snyder have said, dude, stop doing that?
Yeah, I feel like perhaps, because Zack Snyder, his strengths really seem to be like, I would say more cinematography and more action choreography than it is characters and narrative.
Yeah, he's very good with style. And he can do like decent characters and narrative if he sticks to a simple enough story.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, so I feel maybe as a director he should have looked at it and said, maybe let's tone it down. 40% more. Less, sorry.
So I mean, Jesse Eisenberg had another huge subplot in this movie where he was trying to bring down Superman. So on one hand, he's trying to buy this huge chunk of kryptonite that they discovered in the ocean, and then he's also sneaking into the old Krypton ship somehow without being detected, and he's just getting in there and messing around, and somehow manages to resurrect Zod using his own blood, and then that turns Zod into Doomsday, who is super indestructible, and it makes no sense whatsoever.
I believe the word of this movie is convenience. A lot of things happen very conveniently. Like the way that, I don't know if both of them, but both Batman and Superman, I think, figure out each other's identities, but we never really get a scene.
Yeah, so that was another huge flaw in the movie. Lex Luthor figures out that Clark Kent is Superman and kidnaps his mom. Superman figures out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Does Batman figure out that Bruce Wayne is Superman? That Clark Kent is Superman?
I don't remember that scene, but I mean, in this universe, why not?
Yeah, but that's it. Okay, all those things we just mentioned, I can't remember an explicit scene that explains how all these people came to know each other's secret identities. Again, maybe this is something that's addressed in the 3-hour director's cut, but as far as what was in the theatrical version, it makes no sense that they all figured out who each person was, and it's just shown in like this very almost nonchalant way. Like they just like, yo, Bruce, stop doing this. I'm like, wait, how did he figure it out that was Bruce? He just like says it as if, oh, obviously he knew.
That's a one-liner. Okay, let's talk about the other big character that's in this movie, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman.
Gal Gadot?
Anyway. Look, listen, Gal, get a normal last name so everyone on the internet knows how to pronounce it. Please and thank you.
Anyway, so she was, like, from the beginning, I wasn't a huge fan of this casting decision to cast her as Wonder Woman, just on the basis, not even, like, based on her acting ability. I just felt like she doesn't really look the part. Like, I think she has a pretty good face for the part. But as far as her build, I mean, Wonder Woman in the comics is, this...
An Amazonian warrior princess.
Amazonian warrior princess. And, I mean, Gal just doesn't have the build for that. Especially when you consider how huge and intimidating Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill look in their respective roles. And she just really does not look the part.
Like, it's weird to say, but like a Ronda Rousey UFC women's fighter type of build would have been better, because that looks like a warrior. You know what I mean?
I mean, you would have to go... I mean, if you want to cast Wonder Woman properly, you would almost have to go digging for... not a bodybuilder type, because that would look kind of ridiculous, but, someone who's very athletic.
Or at least say, hey,
built a bit more muscular to begin with.
Or at least say, hey, Gal, you're getting cast as Wonder Woman. The next, 6-7 months, you're going to be putting on some weight, you're going to be putting on some muscle. Deal with it. You know what I mean?
No, well, I mean, every body type is different. Some people just are not well suited.
I agree.
Okay, but besides that, her actual performance in the movie was okay. I mean, she didn't deliver her lines too badly. Right?
I had no interest in her in this movie because I kind of feel I have no interest in Wonder Woman. She's not an interesting character to me. But then I think that was the challenge of the director and this movie, to present her in a way that is interesting to me. And they, I think, completely failed on that aspect, because every time she was on, I'm like, Here comes this plot point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because I feel like I've heard from people, looking at some reviews before seeing the movie, that she was actually really good in the movie. And granted, I mean, when the final fight comes, they have her do some cool stuff and help out Batman and Superman. But if you're someone who hasn't read the let's say you're like a person who hasn't read the comics, you go in and really all you see of her throughout the movie is you see her out of the corner of Bruce's eye. She's always wearing like a really nice dress, and she'll like exchange some kind of glance with him. And then they have a brief conversation at one point that she needs to get something from Lex that belongs to her, which turns out to be a photograph of her 100 years ago.
Look at this photograph!
Yeah, I mean, you could pretty much have cut her out of the movie and it wouldn't change that much, aside from, I mean, you could have worked around the fact that she's not in the fight at the end. But the point just being that you just felt like she didn't need to be in the movie to begin with, and that's the opinion I had going into the movie, and nothing really convinced me otherwise when I was watching the movie. I mean, the Wonder Woman movie might still be good. I haven't really been following it too closely.
What was the thing you said about the picture that surfaced? They all look like a bunch of extras from Thor.
Okay. Well, let's not be too mean about the Wonder Woman movie, because we don't know much about what's going on there.
But if you want a review of the picture that surfaced,
we could definitely talk about that a bit. No, I mean, yeah, acting-wise, she was okay, but you can't shake the feeling that her, and not only just her, but all the Justice League tie-ins to this movie did not feel like they needed to be there. I mean, right before the big fight with Batman and Superman that the whole movie's been building up to, we get this scene of her reading an email from Bruce that he sent her because of the data that he got off of Lex Luthor's computers.
I like that.
And it shows all the Justice League members, and then she like actually clicks through each of the members, and you get a short video kind of teasing their movies.
I like to call that.
Shut up. It literally feels like what Marvel would do in a post-credit scene, but Zack Snyder decides to include that in this moment that really breaks the flow of the movie right before the climactic fight.
I like to call that scene scroll down for Justice League.
Yeah, because of the way that she scrolls through the email one line at a time, so for maximum dramatic impact.
Yeah, it was weird, and also like I think my favorite one was Jason Momoa like coming out of the water as Aquaman, and I just thought of that scene in Zoolander where he's like, wetness is the essence of moisture.
Wait,
moisture.
I made that joke first.
Whatever.
I made that joke first. I called dibs on that.
Moisture is the essence of wetness. Okay, but the one comment I will make about Aquaman, well, not the one comment, but another comment I'll make about Aquaman is I like how they kind of got rid of his his weird suit there, his orange suit, and his tattoos are kind of like his suit.
Okay, wait, were those tattoos,
yes,
or were they like scales? Because it was a bit hard to see where the scene was a bit dark.
Tattoos are scales, either way the suit isn't there, and I'm like, okay, that's a good way of like making him look more realistic in this universe.
Sure. I mean, I just have an issue with the placement of that scene. It was just in a weird place. And again, it goes with this whole theme where Wonder Woman and Justice League stuff felt super shoehorned in. This shouldn't be Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, just be Batman v Superman, you know?
Like, there can almost be like 4 30-minute movies for like each of these people, just showing like who they are, how they got their powers, in a whole separate thing, rather than like, we're introducing these 4 people. But if you're coming in as like the average viewer, you're like, who are these guys? And the most baffling one was when Cyborg was being created. There's like this box of like energy.
Yeah,
that,
what
like,
was that?
And like, okay, so I follow DC Comics, but not super closely. And
I don't follow them at all, so I have no idea what that weird box thing. I'm like, what is this, a Tesseract or something?
Yeah, I'm like, what is this nonsense? like, there's no explanation. There's no like the scientist in the room is like, oh, this thing,
it's doing a thing.
He's like, there's this crazy stuff happening. Let me close my camera that is documenting it. Scientist.
Anyway, I mean, yeah, it kind of feels almost like this movie stole the origin stories that each of those movies now has to tell.
Yeah, like it's really a mess in there.
Yeah. I mean, just put it as a post-credit scene, and I could have kind of bought it,
let's talk about the big fight between Batman and Superman. Let me get your thoughts on it first.
Okay, so this is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. Similarly to the Batman versus Bane fight in the middle of Dark Knight Rises, I felt this fight really felt like it had a lot of emotional weight to it. And it felt very heavy. It wasn't like the super fast-paced Superman fights in Man of Steel. But instead, you get this tone where Superman's kind of been blackmailed into fighting Batman because somehow Lex found out who his mom was and kidnapped her.
Horrible motivations. Like, whatever themes they're introducing at the beginning are pretty much gone by this point, and it's all just being manipulated by Lex. And, it seems very dumb for our two big characters to be used as pawns.
Okay, wait, I disagree on that because I felt that, from a narrative point of view, it makes no sense for Superman to want to kill Batman. I mean, to Superman, Batman is just like a nuisance as far as his power goes. But I felt that having him fight Batman because he'd been blackmailed into it because his mom was in danger was a bit more interesting. And, Lois Lane and Superman's mom are really the only things that you can really use against Superman, right?
I guess.
So I actually was kind of on board with the whole angle of Superman wanting to fight Batman to save his mom. And of course, and as we saw during the rest of the movie, Batman wants to fight Superman for his own reasons.
Yeah.
So I thought I didn't have a problem with that.
So again, you were saying that the fight seemed very brutal and physical.
It felt like a very heavy fight. There was a lot of changes in the power dynamics between them, where first Superman is dominating the fight, then Batman hits him with some kryptonite.
And he dominates him. I love that scene of I think Superman flies up to him, just gives him a tap and sends Batman flying.
Yeah, I love that scene. That was amazing.
And then you see Superman kind of getting up off the floor. You see Batman getting up off the floor. It's
what did I just get myself into?
There was a moment of regret in Batman's eyes.
Well, not even his eyes. You can see it in his mouth.
I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah, so the fight, I really liked the fight. I thought it was really dramatic, and there was a lot of emotional weight to it, and really brutal with lots of back and forth going on, so I liked the fight.
Yeah.
You weren't as big of a fan of it?
I'm not as big of a fan of it because, like I said, the hype of this movie is Batman versus Superman and their confrontation, right? But at the end of the day, you're working towards a Justice League movie, so these people have to reconcile and work together at some point. So there can't really be a clear winner. And I thought what this movie did is it gave us a clear winner, which I didn't really like. Like you said, there was a lot of power changes in the battle, but at the end of the day, Batman reigned triumphant over Superman.
Well, yeah, but Batman did sort of cheat, right? I mean, he was using a lot...
No, he was better prepared.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Superman is clearly the stronger of the two, but Batman was just happened to have Superman's one weakness on hand in order to gain the upper hand.
There's four of them. Four of Superman's weaknesses.
No, but that's what I mean. There was a lot of back and forth in the fight. You could clearly see that Superman could easily destroy Batman if he wanted to. But Batman just kind of managed to keep wearing down Superman using all the kryptonite, and that's how he sort of won the fight at the end.
I feel maybe the reason I don't like it as much is because I keep comparing it to the Dark Knight Returns comic book and animated adaptation.
Which I didn't read.
Or watch?
Or watch.
All right. Which I felt did the fight a little better and had their motivations better set up. So maybe that's my problem for that. I don't know. Yeah. I just felt like the winner was too clear in this. You know what I mean? Superman kind of really looked weak coming out of this.
I mean, I didn't get the same feeling. I mean, it just goes to show how subjective these things can be. I didn't really get that feeling. I thought it was a fair fight. In my eyes, Batman kind of fought dirty, but then again, what other choice did he have? And Superman still looked like he was really strong. He just kind of... Batman just got the upper hand on him because of the kryptonite. And then that leads into the moment where Superman says something like, save Martha, which also happens to be Bruce Wayne's mom's name. Never realized that in my life. You? Well, not until I saw this movie. I'm like, I guess that is kind of a coincidence. Yeah. Okay. Some people were kind of mad at that, thinking it was a bit of a dumb way to end the fight. What did you think?
If we're talking about dumb moments, I feel like that's not even like close to the top of the list.
That ship has sailed by this point in the movie.
Yeah, whatever. You know, they have to get out of like this confrontation and get onto other stuff. So I'm fine with it. The next scene, I just want it's more of a nitpick thing, but but there's a lot of stuff writing out. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next scene, it's kind of a nitpick thing. But after he says, save Martha, Batman goes into a warehouse and he takes down a bunch of Lex Luthor's thugs that are holding Martha hostage, right?
Sure.
Okay. My problem with that scene is you're just coming off Batman versus Superman, which is technically one of the big boss fights for this movie, right?
Yeah, you could call it that.
Okay. So do I really need to see Batman disarming a bunch of thugs who are clearly weaker than him? To like
without his giant Iron Man armor at this point for some reason.
Yeah, like
but it's okay because his suit is bulletproof anyway.
To me, I would have liked this scene of Batman disarming people and like beating up bad guys somewhere at the beginning of the movie. That way we see like, okay, Batman is a serious physical threat. He can like beat people up. He could take out a whole room by himself, you know. Yeah. Like this guy's a threat. Book him strong in the beginning rather than like, well, you already made him beat like the strongest guy in this universe. And now we have to like kind of sit through five.
Well, him fighting through a bunch of rooms. Well, I mean,
like 5 or 6 minutes of him beating through a room, and
it's a cool fight.
It's a cool fight, and I thought this is like, okay, this is the Batman. Like he's using gadgets, he's like doing a lot of jumping and like punching,
just destroying people.
I think he gave someone a rock bottom at one point. That was cool, but. Yeah, I thought the placement of the fight was really my issue with it. Like, I would have been completely fine with him just, like, you know, crashing through the window and, like disarming, like, the two thugs or something that were holding Martha hostage.
Sure. Yeah, because prior to this, we just had that weird dream sequence where Batman was in a trench coat that makes no sense to anyone who hasn't read the comics. I think you understood what was going on.
I understood a bit, and for what it looks like to me, I think they're doing the Flashpoint storyline in the future when they get to Justice League or whatever, which could be interesting, but like in this movie it's just like so out of place.
Yeah, it's just another thing that didn't need to be there that was trying to tie into the Justice League or to some other comic book series.
Like there's nearly like 8 characters in this movie that you have to juggle and give like their appropriate screen time, and there's no way that even the best director could manage all of this.
Joss Whedon.
Joss the boss?
Yeah, okay, so then we get to just because we almost missed them earlier, but I also wanted to point out how that huge subplot in the first hour of the movie with the dude in the wheelchair and the senator lady, also really unnecessary and could have been trimmed down a lot.
We had to go back and grab those people and say like, hey, you guys were useless in the movies.
Yeah, we just had to go back and mention that because I wouldn't feel right finishing this review without talking about how unnecessary all that stuff was. I mean, the only reason they did that stuff was so that they could blow up that courthouse.
Which amounted to nothing.
Which, again, didn't matter because, okay, at the time when that scene played, I was kind of shocked. I was like, oh, wow, they're going to blame this on Superman and that's going to turn everyone against him. But no, then you see a news report where the guy says, oh, it's probably the dude in the wheelchair who snuck a bomb in. And then it's just like, well, then why'd you do that? It doesn't matter then if no one blames Superman for it.
Like, all their scenes combined probably amounted to like 20 minutes between the wheelchair and the senator lady. Cut that down.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it doesn't need to be in the movie at all, but it doesn't need to be in the movie as much as it was. Like, that's the thing.
For a movie that's already bloated, you didn't need it in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, if you're like, ooh, we have a lot of people in this movie, maybe we should start cutting some stuff down. Stop with this!
Or start with the Justice League stuff, but, you know, that's DC kind of shoehorning that and making them shoehorn that in there.
Let's do a Marvel Cinematic Universe in one movie!
Yeah, so then, we finish the Batman-Superman fight. Batman saves the mom. That scene's really cool. Then, the Abomination / Doomsday comes out for reasons we don't quite understand.
Yeah.
They just created him somehow.
Okay, so I just want to set up the fact that the way that Doomsday is originally created in DC Comics, without really getting into it, is on an alien planet. There's a bunch of scientists that create a monster that is Doomsday, and he's basically indestructible. And anytime he dies, he adapts to that form of death, and he can't be killed by that thing a second time. Mm-hmm. So let's say you kill him by chopping off his head. Well, next time he's going to come back, and let's say his neck is strong.
He'll have a neck brace.
He'll have a neck brace. Like, hey, God, it's hard to move. It's hard to move here, right? So, right, that's basically what happened. So I was kind of okay with the way that Doomsday was created in this movie, though I would have liked to give it more time and better like explain how Lex was able to like just go into the spaceship and
totally take control of it.
Take control, bring Zod, and like no one, like I know he's given access to it at one point, but like no one really asks questions. It's just like, oh yeah, there's Lex with naked Zod. What's he going to do in the ship? Let him go.
Let them fight. And like you were saying, there was even that part where Lex was talking to the ship, and he's like, oh yeah, do something with Zod's body, and the ship is like, ooh, the Council of Krypton doesn't allow that, and Lex is like, oh, well, the council is all dead, so do it anyway. And the ship says, okay.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Lex.
Yeah, so we get the Doomsday fight. Again, it's really cool. Doomsday looks like a super intimidating villain, just causing all kinds of destruction.
My actual favorite scene of the movie is when Superman like brings him into outer space, and he's just like punching him in there, and it looks so awesome out of space in outer space. Like
super cool. And then the nuke comes in.
Okay, and the nuke. Also a reference to The Dark Knight Returns, because I think the Russians fire a nuke and it hits Superman, and that's why his body becomes like all skinny and like deformed or whatever. And then like the sun comes around and recharges Superman or whatever.
Cool, sure.
So I'm like, while okay, I get that that's where that's from, maybe not necessary, and just slowed things down for a little while for no particular reason.
Yeah. No, I thought it was all right. I mean, you knew that Superman was going to recover from it.
Yeah, but if you knew he was going to recover from it, why'd you do it?
It looked cool. I mean, it looked kind of cool to see Superman
weak like that, yeah.
It's like, oh no, poor Superman.
Poor Soups.
Yeah. Okay, so then the fight continues. Wonder Woman shows up because she saw the fight happening on live news footage on an airplane, which is just the dumbest way to, like, the least original possible way to inform her of the fight. But, you know, she comes in, she does some cool stuff. She got a sword and a shield for some reason.
We kind of get in all of her spots, minus, like, the lasso of truth or whatever it's
I thought
called.
the lasso of truth looked really cool, how it lights up like that.
They use it?
Yeah, you don't remember? She uses it
right at the end,
to kind of hold Doomsday.
Yes.
It looked really cool, at least.
Yeah, so I thought it was cool. Like, they got in all of her spots, but again, like, this character is not built up enough. We don't know any of her powers or anything, so our entire introduction is in the big last fight of the movie.
Yeah, because let's face it, I mean, if you want to take this movie as a self-contained movie, right? All you know about Wonder Woman is what you see in the movie, and prior to this, there's no indication of why she is so insanely powerful. I mean, maybe if the actual Wonder Woman movie had come out before this, it would make more sense. But, I mean, just judging from the movie and from the perspective of someone who doesn't read the comic books, it would be really confusing.
Like, you know that there's something special about her because there was a picture of her taken in, like, World War II, and she's still, like, looking young or whatever.
Sure.
So there's definitely something special about her, but you don't know what her power is. Maybe she's really fast.
Yeah.
Maybe she's a cyborg.
Whoa. Maybe she can something water.
So yeah, the fight was good.
But like, you know, she does some cool stuff in the fight.
The fight was good between the characters. I felt Batman was really underutilized, but again, what do you want him to do against someone like Doomsday? Yeah. He kind of like stood in the background.
Yeah, I mean, the only way that they could have worked it would just be to have Batman put the suit back on and maybe have some extra kryptonite weapons and fight Doomsday like that while Superman gets the actual kryptonite spear, which Lois Lane threw in the water just to cause more conflict for no reason.
Well, gonna dump the spear in the water. Damn, I needed that.
It goes back. Oh, better go underwater. Oh no, now I'm stuck. Oh, good, Superman's here. Why don't we just?
Now Superman's stuck underwater. It's like, God damn it!
Seriously, why couldn't she just yell out, "Hey, Superman, come get this spear that I threw in the water because you can hear me no matter where you are anyway."
I felt like the whole scene should have been da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hey. Okay, so there was that. One of my best things of the movie was Hans Zimmer's score of the Wonder Woman theme.
Yes,
like
granted, Wonder Woman gets the best theme song in the movie.
Like,
it sounds super cool.
As soon as she like drops in and blocks Doomsday's laser blast or whatever, and it's like da-na-na, doom 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 doom. I'm like, yeah, that's the driving theme. I'm like, that's really good.
It's a good theme song.
That's a good theme song. It's a shame your character is not good, but regardless. So the fight's good, and as we know, it kind of progresses to the point that, like, Superman drives the spear into Doomsday, the kryptonite spear, and gets stabbed himself.
Very dramatic.
Very dramatic, and we get the death of Superman.
Yeah, we get, like, it feels like 5 funeral scenes of Superman. And despite, like, he's going to come back because they're building a cinematic universe around him.
If it honestly felt like the ending of Return of the King.
Yeah, well,
I was expecting them to, like, put him on an elven ship and send him into the, like, elven lands.
Yeah.
Whatever. But, and, it's weird. And then, like, we go see that scene in the jail cell, which was kind of cool, where Batman attacks Lex Luthor.
Again, this feels like a post-credit scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't need to be there.
But we see that Lex Luthor knows that something is coming to Earth, which I have to speculate is Darkseid from DC Comics.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know who that is, think Thanos. Pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, again, how does Lex Luthor know this? I don't know. Maybe in the director's cut they explain better how, maybe he learned it from the Krypton archives or something.
Yeah.
But in the movie, he just sounds like he's rambling about something coming. And then we get another similar scene where Bruce is talking to Wonder Woman at the funeral. And he's all, oh, there's something coming. And she's like, how do you know? He's like,
I'm Batman.
Whatever. Cinematic universe.
Yeah, so I mean, it ends a little weak, and and after they bury Superman, you see the dirt like floating on his grave. So you knew he wasn't gonna die.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a super flat emotional moment because you know that they're making more movies.
So, and also the fact that they say that Clark Kent was killed in the Battle of Metropolis again, right? So does that mean that Clark Kent is no longer going to be a factor in any of these movies? It's just going to be he's here as Superman?
I don't know. Do you feel like anyone's planning ahead with this franchise?
I mean, they planned ahead. I don't feel like they planned release dates. They didn't plan storylines to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, we'll figure it out. It's like, oh man, the movie's coming out in a week. Let's weave some stuff together.
Yeah. So, I mean, closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts.
Look, I mean, it sounds like we've been really harsh on the movie, but I mean, it's just that there's so many small flaws or like small to medium-sized flaws in the movie that you can kind of pick up on. And a lot of the flaws in the movie just have to do with the fact that there were too many unnecessary characters, and not even that they were necessarily bad, or the dialogue in those scenes was really bad, but it just felt like they could have been, like, you could have trimmed the fat of this movie. There was too much going on.
My review, as soon as I left the movie, I'm like, all these scenes, for the most part at least, separately, all work. Like, the dialogue's good, the confrontation, the tension, it all works between characters. But woven together as a narrative, there's some kind of disconnect. Like, there's so many, like, cuts to something else happening that doesn't really, like, follow a nice flow, like, plot points and whatever. They just kind of come and go. It's weird. But at the same time, like, this movie's runtime, 2.5 hours, something like that, 2 hours 45.
Yeah, something crazy.
I never felt bored throughout this movie. Like, there was always something going on, so whatever.
It just didn't always feel like that something was paying off properly.
And you know what? I'd still rather watch this movie than I'd watch Iron Man 2 or Iron Man 3. So for Marvel fanboys, like, understand those are bad movies. I don't care what their score says on Rotten Tomatoes. They were not good movies. Deal with that.
Bold. Yeah, I mean, so despite all the criticisms we put against it, I still think... Well, I mean, if you're at this point in the review, you have already seen the movie, so, I don't know, feel free to let us know what you thought, but...
Or we've described the movie enough to you.
That you're not going to go see it now. But yeah, I mean, I thought overall it was a good movie. There was just a lot, I just felt like there was a much better movie hidden underneath all the bloated fat that was covering this movie, right?
Right.
You just could have cut, like, there were only a few things, like... Lex Luthor's acting or the Justice League shoehorning that really felt like...
Bad.
Oh, sorry. Okay, no, sorry. Let me rephrase that. There were only a few things like Lex Luthor's acting that felt like it's kind of indefensible. The other things in the movie just felt like they didn't need to be there. Like, they were fine, like you said, by themselves, but integrated within the bigger picture of this movie, you could have cut a lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
Or reshot it to be a little bit more condensed and efficient.
I agree with that. I'd say go watch it, like we said.
You've already seen it if you're at this point.
Right. But if you haven't seen it and you're listening to all this and you really like the sound of my voice, call 1-800. No, but go take a look at it. I think it warrants having your own opinion, or at least you and your friends could talk about this movie like we just did, and you'd get some sort of enjoyment out of it. I don't think
Yeah.
you could leave there feeling miserable.
Yeah, I don't feel like I got ripped off. I'm glad I saw it, and it's definitely a movie that at least gives you a lot to talk about, right?
Yeah.
As we've clearly just proven.
So, gives you stuff to talk about if you're ever on a first date. Just rant to the girl about Batman v Superman and see where the night takes you, you know?
Or grant to the guy.
He'll be like, wow, this girl.
Awesome.
Cool.
Hit the jackpot.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to our little discussion here. Have a wonderful Easter. I'm Eric.
I'm Steven.
Au revoir.
What?